Hello, if you're going to be at MagicCon Atlanta, I'm going to be there. Bosch and Roll will be there, and we are sharing a meet and greet time slot. So if you would like to get some tokens and stickers and signatures from your favorite legacy content creators, please check us out in the Creator Central from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. Hope to see you there. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and I'm going to be recording a podcast shortly where I start talking about Eternal Weekend, and I thought this would be a good time to do a check-in on some meta decks. So Anubis has asked me to play some sort of red initiative Stompy, some moon Stompy, and so I bumped this up in the queue a little bit to play this before I recorded this podcast episode to kind of see how this feels. Now, Anubis's version is not exactly stock here, as there is an active decision being made to play a playset of Caves of Chaos Adventurer rather than the One Ring. I think the One Ring is a stupid magic card. I repeatedly say that I don't think it will be legal in Legacy a year from now. And I'm a big fan of throwing the broken cards into your decks. But it's not like Caves of Chaos Adventurer is bad. And the benefit of playing something like this is that it goes turbo quickly. You play it, it has a 5/3 base stat line. You take the initiative the following turn, it is a 7/5, and then you are going to get 2 attacks for 7 plus a drain for 5 from the Undercity, and given a Force of Will or a fetch land or literally anything else, that should be enough to win the game outright. This build is very, very clearly gunning for graveyard-based decks. Honestly, I think this one is too heavy on the graveyard hate, as you have very, very little ability to adjust the cards in the main deck. If something like Chalice of the Void or Dead Gone or Fury or Magus of the Moon isn't great, if graveyard hate is not a thing that you are concerned with, then you're kind of out of luck as far as sideboarding goes for the most part. You have the generic Disruptor Flute, which you can use to fill slots, but this is not necessarily the most exciting card. We are looking to get a decent number of free wins with Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon. I've talked about this a lot, though. The lock pieces aren't what they used to be. These aren't as consistently just soloing games anymore. We are not in the early 2010s where just sticking a Magus of the Moon meant that your opponent had 4 outs to it, 4 lightning bolts, or where sticking a Blood Moon meant that they only had, enough cards that they could count them on one hand that were still viable after that. So we're going to see how this feels overall. We are capable of some very aggressive starts, and we do still have some ability to just grind out games. Laelia is solid as just another way to get extra cards into exile that you can then cast, or more accurately play, and the same is true of Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So we don't have the explicit easy card advantage of the One Ring, but we can work for it a little bit more using the attack step and accomplish similar things. With that being said, if you need any cards for MagicCon Atlanta, you could potentially, depending on when you watch this video, still place your order online and pick it up on site. They are really, really good about that. There will always be an online cutoff time for exactly when those close. If you're placing an order online for any cards, use promo code ThrabenU, save yourself 5% on the order, and check out their in-person booth. It is really, really good. If you are looking for legacy staples and dual lands and bling cards, they're going to have stuff that you're going to like there. All right, let's battle. Okay, I have a bit of a weird hand in terms of the mana here, and I'll have some decisions about how exactly I play it out here. Versus Tundra, this could potentially be Nadu. I could be looking at Swords to Plowshares from a handful of different decks, so I think I am interested in Chalice on one. I don't think I am interested in playing it off of City of Traders immediately, though. I think we are going to use one Spirit Guide to cast a Chalice of the Void, and if our opponent dazes, we can use the other here. Although, honestly, I would prefer not to. Are we resolving? We are resolving. This doesn't mean that this Chalice is stuck here, right? Prismatic Ending exists, Teferi exists. These are, like, Chalice of the Void is not nearly as good as it used to be. Chalice's cousin, more other Chalice? Chalice on 2 is perhaps not amazing if my opponent is just playing a blue-white control deck. I think I am just going to throw down a threat. I have a scaling threat in hand, so I think I am just okay with this. This is good enough to get a response. Basic white border island, and a dress down is fine. So my opponent gets a redraw. It looks like we were probably playing against Stifle Knot, so we have shut off Phyrexian Dreadnought, but I lose my haste, which is annoying, because that means I miss 2 points of damage, and then 1 point of damage every turn that this attacks beyond this, because I don't get the +1/+1 counter. Yes, guy. So there is a decent chance that a 2-drop flash creature like Doorkeeper Thrall is coming. So the ETB creatures like Caves of Chaos Adventurer and Broads and Pyrogoyf are worse. I think I am just going to go ahead and play a Broadside here. Free combat. I now believe that I'm going to just play a Chalice of the Void that I can throw with Broadside this turn. I'll do my trigger. That's a land. I'm not going to use that. All right. I think I'm now going to play Priority Chicken. I'm going to pass Priority right here and see if my opponent does anything. If they don't do anything, I'm not throwing with Broadside for 2, but if they do something, I will throw Chalice of the Void afterwards. It is a Flame of Honor to just destroy target artifact. Sure. I will throw this Chalice of the Void at your face, and we'll see how this plays out from here. My opponent's cantrips are now unlocked. I have a Pyrogoyf coming for a respectable amount of damage. In theory. Another land drop. Sure, that's fine. And we'll see what the follow-up is. It is another Swords. Sure. And a Tamiyo. That's all fine. I think I am taking the initiative here. Taking the initiative means that I get another land drop that allows me to play a 4-drop guaranteed next turn at the cost of my City of Traders. Ooh. Hate that. Opponent has 0 cards in hand, but they actively control a Tamiyo. So that gives them another card each turn cycle, and I currently have 0 castable cards. Opponent cracks immediately, and ponders, which is going to transform that Tamiyo. I can Pyrogoyf that out of existence if I draw a mana source, which I should do roughly 50% of the time. But my opponent has 2 cards in hand now. So this one is going to slip away pretty quickly if I don't draw mana. If I draw mana, everything is fine. 6 damage goes and kills that Tamiyo. That's a land. Prismatic Ending, sure. There's now a pause. Opponent might be considering Tamiyo minus. No, Tamiyo does plus. 1 card remaining. All right, I do hit the land. So bam, and bam. Does this 1 card answer Pyrogoyf? It does not. I will take out Tamiyo. Opponent's Swords, sure. I think this is a board state that favors me, but it's pretty close. Part of that depends on what lands my opponent has access to. If they have a Mystic Sanctuary, they don't. All right, just a very quick pass the turn. And I did lose my City of Traders, so we're going to play some draw go for a little while. Relatively speaking, my opponent has a lot of bad cards that don't really do all that much by themselves. All right, cool. Flash creatures do exist in my opponent's deck, though, so, like, things can happen here that are very bad. Is that the last one? Yeah, that is the last Swords to Plowshares. So I really want to trap, but I think I will just take the Surveil. And basically, we're just going to bottom mana. How is this? This is fine. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. I will go to Stash. Doesn't give me enough mana to cast this immediately. I'm 1 short there, but I've got good resources now. That's just another land drop. Tamiyo is fine. I will now go to Catacombs. These are good cards. I am probably going to do this post-combat and this pre-combat. So, here we go. And that's just enough. We overwhelm our opponent. That was absolutely scary. GG. So Phyrexian Dreadnought is a thing. Don't really get better at answering that card. I could do some Disruptor Flutes for the backside of Tamiyo. I could do Disruptor Flute just to slow down Swords to Plowshares or Phyrexian Dreadnought. Both feel pretty mediocre. Fiery Confluence is another out to a Resolved Dreadnought. Chalice of the Void is not particularly good. The Blood Moon effects are not amazing. My opponent is a 3-color deck, but they are on a Prismatic Vista mana base, so I am maybe going to cut them off a color with Blood Moon. Dead is not great. The other side of that is not displaying, but this is Dead Gone, so my opponent can, or rather I can use the Gone side of this to bounce a Phyrexian Dreadnought that has resolved. I think I'm going to go the 2 Blood Moons out for Disruptor Flutes and call that good. Oh, wow, that is a bad hand. That is a 7 mana source hand. This is fine. So this is Ancient Tomb into Chalice, into Play Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, probably into Pyrogoyf. I think I'm just going to get rid of this land. I don't think I can take any more damage from my lands. I'm already going to have taken so much damage to my own lands by turn 2, honestly. And I'm very happy to not see a Tamiyo turn 1 on the play before my Chalice of the Void can come down. What did that do? Okay, they kept their card. Sure. Cool, a land that doesn't hurt me. That is actually very, very good. So I will throw down a Chalice for 1, and it sticks. Again, we should not take that as something that actually matters all that much, though. My opponent is just fine at playing around this or removing it. And there is another basic land. So, you know, some of my cards are less good. I think I am into Fable immediately and trying to loot with Pyrogoyf to make Pyrogoyf... Sorry, loot with Fable to make Pyrogoyf better. That is a Force of Negation, pitching an actual factual Jace the Mind Sculptor. No play on 2 mana from my opponent. At 3 mana, Flame of Honor can start to take out Chalice of the Void. Magus of the Moon does not actually take my opponent off of any colors. I might play it anyway. This is a line that doesn't require me to take any damage this turn. And I potentially just Sundering Eruption a basic the following turn. I don't know exactly how many basic lands my opponent is going to have. Fascinating. That's the draw 2 mode rather than the kill a creature or kill an artifact mode. That is unexpected. There's a mountain. Okay, well, I think I'm going to try to secure the Magus before I attack. I think I am attacking. Alright, it just hits. Am I gonna get got by a giant fucking, the X cost artifact enchantment destruction thing? Wrath of the Skies? Okay, there's Chalice of the Void down. 1-drops are online. Fury. Okay. Send in for 4. Opponent's at 13. I think I am in you can't answer them all mode. Pyrogoyf, go to face. Dress down. Okay. So Pyrogoyf's triggered ability does not go off, but my opponent does not get an opportunity to fetch lands here. Layers are involved, but everything is still mountains. Pyrogoyf is removed. I would love for my opponent to play something like a Tamiyo that I just kill with a Fury and then just continue to tempo my opponent out via Magus of the Moons. Force of Will. Are we doing Disruptor Flute on Force of Will? I might be doing Disruptor Flute on Force of Will. Opponent's at 9. Yeah. It's awkward because Flame of Honor, though. Tamiyo's fine. Opponent didn't really use enough mana here for my liking. I might still do this anyway. Flame of Honor is a much better short-term name now. I am going to do that. Shatter Skull Smashing is fine. I think I'm going to play this as a land, do a Shatter Skull Smashing for X equals 3, and attempt to take out the Tamiyo. I know that my opponent has Force of Will. Okay, that just goes through. That's great. I will send in with both copies of these. Things can happen with flash creatures again. They don't. That is another mountain. A new Tamiyo, okay. Ate that for me. Chromox is pretty bad. This probably eats the Force of Will. I think I just have to cast it now. Alright, Force pitching a Consign, sure. My opponent can safely block one copy of Tamiyo. Sorry, one copy of Magus of the Moon, and either take 2 or jump block and gain 2 life. Their call. Alright, they're going to 2. The Tamiyo attacking is good, but either copy of these cards getting through is lethal. So, depending on what is already in their hand, this may or may not actually be a gamble. Crack the clue. They have 3 cards. One of them has to answer or block a Magus of the Moon, or has to draw a card so Tamiyo can plus. That is a Brainstorm. That'll keep my opponent alive, as now the transformed Tamiyo can plus. I can still attack, it just puts my opponent to 1. That is not what I am looking for. So now the question is, do I send in here or here? I think I am doing it at Tamiyo, so that if my opponent minuses, it costs them the Tamiyo. Always yield to those. All right, opponent is not going to block. They're just going to let that bounce. And I'm going to hold my 2 cards in hand in hopes that I draw something like a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, or that lets me loot through them. I am in a really bad position, I think. I don't know what this is, but I hate it. Oh yeah, that's bad. That is real bad. My opponent leaves some back, and my opponent becomes the Monarch here. So I not only have Tamiyo to worry about, but I also have the Monarch to worry about. Oh, this is a bad time to bottom out. I have no good attacks, and I'm borderline dead, and my opponent can Tamiyo minus to get back forth Airlingas and just, I think, explicitly kill me. Another basic island. Alright, they are not going for the kill. Yeah, I will be taking all of that. I'm at 8. I feel like Tamiyo minus on Force of Will is insane. Tamiyo minus on Swords instead. I think that will have a similar overall effect. Yikes. I mean, there is not much to be done there. I guess I won't concede, in case on the off chance that like I draw something that presents lethal, but I don't have any good attacks. Certainly don't have good blocks. Tamiyo pluses. I am taking very close to lethal here. My opponent is up to 7 cards, and that is not gonna do it. GG's. I could have Disruptor Flute on the backside of Tamiyo, but then my opponent just keeps the front side of it around forever and just attacks for clues, which is why I didn't do that. I am fine with my play. We just needed to honestly not draw as many lands as we did. I could go Fiery Confluence, just have something that goes to face for the end game. I think it and Disruptor Flute and Magus of the Moon are all not very exciting. I could get rid of Dead. Dead helps us if our opponent does stick a Dreadnought. And if my opponent doesn't have Dreadnoughts, Dead still just, like, kills Otters. The Flame of Honor doesn't get both modes. That's okay. It's not exciting. Maybe I will do this. Sure. This is fine. But again, Chalice of the Void, not what it used to be. I maybe don't even cast that on turn 1. I'm going to because my deck is 50% mana, but I think there is a very real argument that I should not. The argument to cast this is that my opponent can't then play a turn 1 Tamiyo. Prismatic Vista, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Chromux. I don't have anything good to throw with Broadside here. I think I'm just going to pick Broadside to go under that. And throw down a Magus of the Moon before my opponent has 2 of their colors. There is a very good chance that they can just fetch 1 and they have a basic in hand for the other, so this Magus of the Moon doesn't actually do anything. But again, we've got 10 Graveyard Hate cards in the sideboard, so, you know. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Guessing this is Prismatic Ending on Chalice, and it is. Cool. Send in. Opponent takes 2. I get to play this. It doesn't cost me any life because of Magus of the Moon. And this is a big moment. If my opponent has a Force of Will for this, they are in such good shape. And if they don't, the initiative subgame begins while I have 2 creatures on board. That is a Ponder. And the cantrips are currently slightly worse because Magus of the Moon is stopping fetching. That is a Shuffle. That is good for me. There's another basic land. That is less good for me. I'm going to go down the left side here and stay aggressive. I'm going to go to Forge, and I'm just going to put this on Magus of the Moon to disperse my damage over 2 different bodies. There is a Swords. That's fine. I keep the one around that gives me card advantage, unless there's 2 swords. Fuck me. And that is a miss. I will play 1 land drop and pass the turn, but I'm running on empty now. So it is very possible that my opponent could just go red land, 4th Aerlingus, take the Monarch and the initiative at the same time, and I'm shit out of luck. I don't have the One Ring in this deck to power me through situations that look like this one. Brainstorm. That is a fetch land to clear. That's a red source. Okay, cool. Not red. Thundertrap Trainer is fine, though. Finds a Brainstorm. Alright, I get to trap my opponent. Hit them for 5. I need a creature. That's a land. I'm gonna hold it. So now my opponent gets to take the initiative and accrue that value every turn. This also makes future copies of Magus of the Moon worse. There's that island. So now we are just fully in the do my spells resolve mode. I don't even think it matters if this spell resolves, if I'm being honest. It was good enough for a Force of Will, though. We'll see which way my opponent goes. I suspect it is better for them to go down the right side, but they disagree. I don't think they need the aggression here to win. I think they just need to stop me from resolving any relevant cards. Cool. End of turn Brainstorm. So I'm going to take 5 from Trap here, then a little bit more from the Thundertrap Trainer beyond that. 18. Another fetch land. That's 4th Aerlingus. I'm going to take 1 more draw step and then concede. My draw has to just be insane, because my opponent now has the Monarch and the initiative. I mean, that's not bad. I don't really think it's good enough. Yeah. Now that's just a double striker that gets chump blocked easily. My opponent has 6 cards in hand, 7 after they take their draw for turn. I think we're just fully buried at this point. I take 7 more in combat. I am dead the following turn. My opponent has 7 cards in hand. I'm going to just say we got unlucky this round, but we also did not have the One Ring in our deck, which would be the card that I would singularly want most in this matchup. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Okay, so if I keep this hand, I can play a turn 1 Magus of the Moon on the play and have no reasonable follow-up for it. I don't know that I am actually excited about doing that. This is not great. This is now a turn 2 Magus of the Moon, but it will continue to play cards. I'm not thrilled. I think this is pretty unlikely to win the game. I'm going to go to 5. The 5-card hand is fine. I could go turn 1 City and Fable immediately into Broadside. Or I could slow down a turn to not burn a Spirit Guide. It's going to be a keep. I am never keeping this. I am going to burn the Spirit Guide on 1. And I think this is going to be a time where I potentially win quickly, or I don't win at all. I'm ready for my opponent to just play a tapped Cloud Post on turn 1, and my Magus of the Moon on turn 1 would have been fine. Elmire. Alright, we're dead on turn 1. Good game. Spirit Guide. Bye. Note that turn 1 Magus of the Moon would not have 1 here, as Lotus Petal would have done the thing. And then my opponent is going to dread return a Thassa's Oracle. Let's see if there's anything cool in their list. Not really. Looks pretty stock. So they are having to Cabal Therapy and target themselves here to get the Dread Return into Graveyard. And then there's the Dread Return on Thassa's Oracle. Alright. 10 pieces of Graveyard Hate in. Basically, probably the entire sideboard comes in. Deadcon can go. Fury can go. Blood Moons can probably go. Magus of the Moon technically does stuff. It's unexciting. I need Disruptor Flutes for the Goblin Charbelcher sideboard juke. Chalice on 0 and 1 both do things. They're kind of unexciting. How much can I lower my curve? How many threats does this leave me with? Because we don't count Fairy, obviously. So that is 17 threats plus Spirit Guides and Hearse, kind of. And this is 62 cards as currently configured. It's definitely threat light. I think I will just accept that. We have to work very hard to not die. Sure. I will start with both ley lines in play. I'm going to play Sundering Eruption on turn 1. And I'm going to do this so that my land can't be duressed. I am not paying the life. I will do a Chalice on 0 to stop artifact mana. And then I, in theory, have a turn 2 Disruptor Flute, which will be going on Goblin Charbelcher in all likelihood. Humorously, if I had kept the second leyline, I get a Chrome Mox into a threat this turn. So I think I am not doing that ever. I think I am just casting Disruptor Flute. There's a tapped land. There is a Disruptor Flute. Goblin Charbelcher. Cool. Right. I threw away a card. Probably doesn't matter, but could have held it for a Fable later. Alright. So now we just need to do the same thing where my opponent goes first. Hopefully I open on a Leyline of the Void again. That is much stronger turn 1 interaction than Fairy Macabre. Fairy Macabre is often not good enough. Well, this is a baller hand if I don't die on turn 1. Because I Chalice on 0 and Chalice on 1, and I cut mana off really hard. I think I just have to look for a Leyline, though. I don't think Fairy Macabre is good enough for a keep. Now I'm on 5. So this is Chrome Mox, Imprint a thing, City of Traders, Magus of the Moon, Fairy as the 5. I don't really think it's good enough. This deck just beats Fairy Macabre. Fairy is fine as the supplemental thing, but on the draw, I think I just need Leyline. Not getting Leyline. So I'm now on 4 cards. That is a respectable 4-card hand, or I can keep going for Leyline. I'm trying to win. Let's go for Leyline. Fuck me. On 3, I'll keep a Fairy hand. It's not you. It's not you. It might just be keep Magus of the Moon, hope to spike red land. There's an LED portion of combo for Goblin Charbelcher, which I am currently defenseless against. Alright, there's a shock. There's a Dark Ritual. There's a Charbelcher, and I will die to that. If I keep Chalice on 1 instead of this, I delay this for a couple of turns, but it's not ultimately good enough to get me a win. When's that BNR update? Alright, I don't really like this opening hand. It doesn't really do anything. I have a turn 2 Blood Moon on the draw. I have a Dead Gone for if that's relevant. I think I can just do better with a Soul Land hand. Yeah, this is better. How do I feel about the City of Traders? I'd prefer not to. I kind of need it to bridge, though. I might need it to bridge to Caves of Chaos Adventure, depending on how things shake out. Urza's Tower. Lotus Petal. This means my Chalice of the Void is not particularly fantastic. My opponent will have a chance to play keys before I get this down. So I think that means I'm just going to go aggro here. Well, it's Chrome Mox, Imprint, Broadside. We'll drop Ancient Tomb. Do Simian Spirit Guide. We're just going to try to end this game before my opponent gets their stuff going. Chalice of the Void technically has text on both 0 and 1. I'm going to hold off on this decision. My opponent played out a Lotus Petal on turn 1, which they probably would not do if they had Glaring Fleshraker. Alright, there's Grim Monolith. Means that my opponent has a ton of mana for Voltaic Key purposes. So they can play one of their big scary 4-drops here. Hey, there's a big scary 4-drop. And my opponent draws a card. So, finding a Magus of the Moon or Blood Moon is fine. I can't deal damage this turn. I still, in theory, really like Trap. But my hand sucks. I think I'm just going to Lost Well here. I could draw Fury to hedge against Planeswalkers and play a post-combat Broadside after a Caves of Chaos Adventurer attack. That's, like, fine. So Punchies, attack for air quotes 5. Then I think I will go ahead and play out a Broadside. And again, it did not attack, so the boast ability is not online. And I think I will throw down a Chalice on 1 so my opponent doesn't get more Voltaic Keys to untap this more. If I make it to my next turn, I can potentially play Fury, throw a Fury for 7 points of damage. Have somewhere in the ballpark of lethal, but probably not lethal. There's more One Ring card draw. Sure. There is a Tezzeret. So this is yet another untap on the One Ring here. Planar Nexus is online, so those Tron lands are going to start looking really good. My opponent is discarding, though. Maybe my Chalice stopped them from casting some things. Oh, my opponent is so close to dead here. Bash. 5, 6, 7, plus 7, 14, plus 4, 18. Knew this trap was important. Caves of Chaos Adventurer can change things. I think I am just going to face here, seeing what Caves of Chaos Adventurer hits, and I can pitch cast a Fury if I need to. Yeah. Alright. So, am I hard casting a Fury? Am I playing this? Am I pitch casting a Fury? If I pitch cast the Fury, I have more stuff in play for the following turn. Alright. I think that's my deal breaker. So evoke on bottom, 4 to Tezzeret, kill Tezzeret, 7 at face. Opponent goes to 5, which is effectively 1. Then I've got 3 mana, and I'll pass. It is totally possible for me to just die here. Opponent has 13 cards in hand, and a gajillion D mana. Yeah. Opponent, for multiple different reasons, needs to play a new copy of the One Ring. They are untapping Grim Monolith, which probably means that a Kozilek's Command from Hell is in my future. That is a portable hole that gets countered by Chalice of the Void. That cost my opponent 2 mana. There is a Tezzeret. And give my opponent an untap on the One Ring. Untap on Grim Monolith instead. 9 mana available, 11 counting Eldrazi spawn. Yeah. So I'm going to be nearly dead here. That puts me to 4. My opponent has 10 mana and 8 cards to take me out. 7 cards did go to bottom off of that. And that's just going to be another one that's going to kill me. Fell just short there. So we get a couple of Disruptor Flutes and some copies of Fiery Confluence to help out here. Dead is something that answers Glaring Fleshraker. It otherwise doesn't really do much against their deck, but answering Glaring Fleshraker might just be so important that I just have to do it no matter what. I'm not super happy with Caves of Chaos Adventurer. It's just very slow. I'm not super happy with Chalice of the Void, but I might just need the early interaction. I might just need to do something to try to keep things like Voltaic Key out of play. I think I'm going to take out the initiative sub-game, and most of the remaining cards are reasonable. I wish Dead Gone wasn't so important. It's incredibly awkward, because I probably want Chalice on 1 over Chalice on 0. Might be a Pyrogoyf or a Fable. Go Pyrogoyf. Sure. My body is ready for Karn the Great Creator to destroy this hand. From Mox. Imprint a Spirit Guide. Land drop. Chalice on 1. Chalice on 0. Next turn, I get to play Fable of the Mirrorbreaker and accelerate towards hardcasting a Fury to try to aggro my opponent down. Chalice of the Void sure doesn't stop that. That is an immediate Planeswalker. which can then untap Grim Monolith. And then there's a Glaring Fleshraker immediately, and I can't Fury away both of those permanents. This sucks. If I don't Fury the Tezzeret right now, I may never be able to Fury it. And if I don't remove the Tezzeret this turn, my opponent gets to untap and use this Grim Monolith that they otherwise can't use. I am going to do this line and be very upset about it. I'm going to try to stick my opponent on mana and hope that things get better for me. I'm going to hold this land for a turn. It's not doing me any good. But if my opponent has more mana here, I think they are going to handily win the game. Oh, that'll do too. Sure. 16. That is fine. So I'll go to 14, play Broadside, send in for 2. Opponent goes to 16. I'll throw the Chalice on 0. Sure. I imagine this is just a Kozilek's command for 1 while this is still in play. Yeah. So when this stack clears, I am at 12 already. My opponent has an Urza's Saga that will potentially just eat me alive and has access to north of 4 mana already. I suspect this game is over and my opponent has 1. They did have a 0 drop. I can't cast that. They don't have the mana to. That's a shame. I also can't really attack with the Broadside because my opponent can make their Construct token block with an Eldrazi spawn and the Urza Saga Construct token. And I can't throw anything big enough to stop my opponent here. I'm going to make this land drop and just pass. I think my opponent is now the beatdown, unfortunately. They'll take 2 to make their Construct token. This is horrifying. My opponent is not making another Construct token. That means that they are going to do some disgusting combo nonsense. Sure. Alright. So each one of those is worth 2 right now. That's a Karn. That can take out my Chalice, that can take out my Chrome Mox. Opponent's just tutoring. Lycosynth Lattice? Okay. So that has happened. And I can't attack into this. So I think my opponent's got it. I can't activate Broadside. Need my opponent to... I don't know, is it even bad if they attack me for 9? Like, their Karn takes a hit, they still have the lock. I think they win either way. Hey, guess what I can't do? I can't pitch a red card because I don't have a red card right now. It is colorless because of Lattice. So if I attack in, my opponent just blocks. They've got this one. I am unfortunately dead. GG's. Alright, I have a mediocre opening hand that can maybe do something like play a Magus of the Moon on turn 1. Like we're probably playing against something in the 8-cast ballpark here. Lotus Petal. Another Bauble. There's an Emery, which is very, very dangerous. I will probably have to Fury that away on turn 1. Otherwise, I think it just represents too many cards. Magus the plan? I think Magus is probably the plan. And Chrome Mox, Imprint Spirit Guide, Play City. I'm going to Fury, pitching a red card here before playing Magus of the Moon, because I can currently play around the Artifact Mana Leak. Metallic Rebuke. I'll throw down Magus of the Moon. It is in play. My opponent has now 1 blue source, and Urza's Saga is not valid as a threat right now while this is in play. Alright, that land enters untapped. That is a Thought Monitor. Magus of the Moon does not get to attack anymore. I missed the fucking One Ring, man. I just need a source to refuel after I hemorrhage cards in these opening hands. Alright, so my opponent cracks all of their baubles, takes some redraws. They have 5 cards in hand. My Fury is not currently castable. I'll be passing the turn here. The good news is that my opponent has no colored mana right now. The bad news is that they have... You know what? Never mind. They've got that too. That's an Emery on top of that. So my opponent now has extra card draw every turn, and they are blue painter as well. Sure. 18. My Magus is now a liability as it is keeping me from casting Fury. And then for 2. 18. We're going to do a Chalice on 0 so my opponent can't replay the artifact mana and the baubles from graveyard. And then hopefully I draw a mana source and can play Fury and take out both of these creatures. I think I'm in pretty bad shape. Yeah. So Pinnacle Emissary can now give my opponent a bunch of extra creatures, and this is a body that can just come back later. Notably, they don't actually have the red mana for the Pinnacle Emissary. I am giving that to them via Magus of the Moon. Ancient Tomb comes down. Another one, sure. A Mox Opal, which gets countered, but is still worth 2 drone tokens. This is disastrous. Oh, they're still going. The fucking Kappa Cannoneer on top of that. We're absolutely dead. We're never beating this. So I'm going to get hit for 2 this turn. My opponent will warp out the 2 copies of Pinnacle Emissary, but can just keep playing Emery stuff from graveyard, even if it's not all that strong. Anything left that's castable? Well, the 0 drops are castable. So I can pitch cast for a Fury. We're just dead. Next game. I have Fiery Confluence for this. I will probably Unlicensed Hearse. I can think about Disruptor Flute. What's the stat line on Pinnacle Emissary? I guess that matters here. It's a 3/3, which means that Dead Gone does not innately kill it. That might be a deal breaker for Dead Gone. Get rid of the Blood Moons. Not super thrilled with Magus of the Moon either. Magus of the Moon at least gets pitched for Fury and goes under Chrome Mox. This is a turn 2 Magus of the Moon hand. I'm not thrilled with this. Mountain, Chrome Mox, imprint a Broadside, Chalice on 0, Unlicensed Hearse. This is fine. I'm going to get rid of Broadside here, I think. Chrome Mox, imprint Broadside, Chalice on 0. Yeah. And this Unlicensed Hearse may or may not do anything, right? This checks an Emery pretty hard, but otherwise is unexciting. Yep. Here. So now I have a 2-mana rock in play. Alright. Ancient Tomb. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Saga ticks up. It's another Saga. Am I just going to get goldfished by Painter this game? I'm just going to get goldfished by Painter this game. So this represents a grindstone. I am dead to any mana source. Never mind. We're going to do destroy target artifact twice and 2 damage to each opponent. So destroy Painter, destroy Pithing Needle, yeah, and yeah. Alright. Send in for 2. I think I'm just going to hearse these things out of my opponent's graveyard now on the off chance that another Pithing Needle is coming. That was a lucky top deck. That was a very good Fable loot. So both Urza's Sagas tick up. It's Lava Spur Boots. And no land drop? Nothing to do with the floating mana? Hell yeah. Guess the Unlicensed Hearse has become slightly awkward. We'll just go ahead and crew. I'll send in. The extra treasure token is fine. I think I'll avoid the 2 life here. Play a Pyrogoyf. I now don't want to keep eating cards from graveyard. And hopefully my opponent is just dead. Mana floated. Gets Lotus Petal. No, they just fully kept an all-in Urza Saga Painter's Servant hand, and it fell apart. I think on the draw I need the Disruptor Flutes now. What goes? Do I want to try to get rid of Magus of the Moon? That seems reasonable. Magus can be very, very awkward against Urza's Saga. I can get rid of 3 of them easily, but again, my sideboard is so pointed at graveyard hate that I'm not very good at just sideboarding out fair things. My hand is fine. It's okay if I grind things out, but this is kind of a 6-card hand. I don't think this Chalice of the Void does anything in this hand. I can do better. This has a Fiery Confluence, which is a very powerful card. I could keep this. I'm not happy with it. I wasn't happy with the 7 either. I'll keep this and get rid of a Shatter Skull Smashing, and we'll hope for the best. I don't think Chalice of the Void is very good in the matchup, but I also don't think Blood Moon is good in the matchup. I just don't have anything to sideboard in. Like, we took out a bunch of cards that aren't particularly good, but I don't have anything to bring in. That is a turn 1 Thoughtcast with mana floating. And a turn 1 Painter Servant as well. Sure. Caves of Chaos Adventurer. That is not a bad card. I think I'm going to go Shatterskull Smashing tapped as my land. Just do a Chalice on 0 to stop my opponent from cantripping with Baubles. My next turn is just not very good, though. It is potentially just another tapped land, and then I Fiery Confluence to try to clean things up on turn 3. Opponents chilling with this on the stack. They might have a Force plus a blue card and are thinking about whether or not it is actually worth giving up some card. Artifact land comes into play. Opponent cycles. Mox Opal still online. They miss a point of damage with Painter. I guess technically there's some things that could block. I just don't know that it makes sense to block with it. I have another Chalice on 0. I guess I can cast this on 1. I'm always taking 3 damage off of this next turn, I think. So given that, I'm just going to take that damage now. I will put this on 1, so a Grindstone is harder to put into play, but this is not fantastic. Opponent does counter it, though. They can now pitch an Ancient Tomb because they have a Painter on blue, which is fun. So as of right now, I do have 3 targets for Fiery Confluence. They take the Painter attack this time. 16. 2 cards remaining. How do we feel about City of Traders? I think my life total doesn't matter too much. I think it's more important to potentially double spell somewhere further along the line. Yeah. This is a crazy good counterspell if my opponent has one, but I don't think I get to play around it here, because I am just facing top-decked death. Oh shit, they didn't have one. Hell yeah. Alright, it looks like my opponent has bottomed out. Then I will attempt to take the initiative here. Everything has just worked for me. This is insane. I will get a mountain, I will play a mountain, and pass the turn. And then I potentially have Pyrogoyf plus next turn. Okay. This is brutal for my opponent then, because I just get to forge up this creature now. Shatterskull Smashing, sure. Punchies for 7. Revealing Chrome Mox. 10. You can hang out in exile, I guess. I'll play a City of Traders. I will play a Pyrogoyf. And assuming this resolves, Trap is just lethal the following turn. Alright, we put a win on the board there. I don't really feel great about it. Maybe my opponent picked their Force of Will target wrong this game. Hard to say, I don't know exactly when they had it. Regardless, GG's. Alright, I'm keeping this opening hand. I am really feeling not having the One Ring. The One Ring is just such a powerful thing to shove on turn 1, and this deck just does not have it. So we are just fully on turn 1 Magus of the Moon, hope that it works. We technically have a follow-up. It's not particularly good. I have been unhappy playing this build of this deck. Alright, our Magus of the Moon is doing something. I am going to need more, though. This Magus of the Moon is temporary, and Grim Monolith just lets my opponent power through Magus of the Moon. Alright, cool. Fable is not bad at all. Fable can let me loop through some amount of this stuff and try to fix this hand. This also puts a decent amount of pressure on the board, enough that it's harder to just play a Planeswalker and do pass the turn lines. Fury becomes hard castable next turn. That is a turn 3 Once Upon a Time for Planar Nexus, which is not online. God damn it. Karn's Silex. Sure. That is going to take out everything that I put on board. I'm going to say yes. I think I'm just looting through land here. Yeah. I kind of have to make my opponent blow this up, though. It's so hard to just play Broadside and throw Magus. I think there's times where my opponent can just pass the turn, and then I don't get to do anything with my combat step the following turn. I'm sending in for 4. My opponent is at 12. I am, I think, going to play a Pyrogoyf. I think the margins on this game are going to be tight. I am going to take the 2 points of damage that this gives me right now. And sometimes my opponent does not have a land to kill the Pyrogoyf as well. They do this time. So that does nuke all of my stuff. Now I can Broadside. Attack for 2. Opponent is at 8. This is worth 7 damage. I think I am not doing that this turn. I think I am going to play a Fable. Sometimes my opponent just plays an Ugin, though, and the game effectively ends. That is Karn the Great Creator. 4 cards remaining in hand. Ensnaring Bridge isn't going to do it here. But it is a Walking Ballista. Sure. 4x equals 3. A Dead Gone. There's some awkwardness here with that Ballista as a 3/3. I really want this to just attack. If I play Dead on it, I can't use the counters this turn. Gawning it isn't great. I am not sure whether or not I get to actually use the treasure that I get here. I think I'm going to loot this card. Oh, it's a Pyrogoyf. That's neat. I can play the Pyrogoyf pre-combat. I'm just going to kill Karn. Then I'm going to go to combat. Alright, my opponent is going to ping this and not let me attack, which means that the Goblin Shaman can attack. I will be able to make my treasure token, and that gives me Fury next turn. If I know that my opponent is going to do it... Ooh, they are blocking even. Sure. If they were going to block, then they should have pinged my face. If I always know how they're going to behave, like, I can maybe just do Fury post-combat. Crop rotation, sure. What are we looking at? Are we looking at a Glimmer Post? We're looking at an Urza's Tower. That is 9. Shit, it's Ugin. So that just exiles Pyrogoyf. Sure. That is so much loyalty. That's bad. So now I'm losing Fable. My opponent has 5 Eldrazi spawns. I don't imagine that my deck beats a Resolved Ugin. My opponent gains 3 life, draws another card. There's the One Ring. I'm just gonna concede. We don't beat this. So my Chalice of the Voids are bad. My Dead Gones aren't really great either. Again, this sideboard is so graveyard hate focused that I can't make my in-out numbers actually work. I guess I'm gonna keep a copy of Dead. It's red, it goes under stuff. This hand does not have red mana. That is a no-go from me. This hand has no mana. That is a no-go from me. This hand sucks. It does not do anything. I can, I guess, Disruptor Flute something. But, like, I am not presenting any threat at all. My first play is a turn 3/0/1 creature. Unless you just want to Disruptor Flute but blind. I mean, I guess I'll keep... Don't have any way to get things into graveyard. This is going... I guess I'll get rid of Fiery Confluence. I think my called shot is probably going to be on the One Ring with Disruptor Flute, because it's not in my deck. And that is potentially the bridge to the end game. Disruptor Flute on Ugin is fine, but the cast ability is still disastrous. Let's name the One Ring. I may just need this as a land. My odds of winning are pretty bad right now. I'm going to cast it as a spell. Thundering Eruption. We have converted it into a basic forest. Another basic forest. This one I'm just going to play as a land. I think I need to be able to hardcast a Fury. Boseiju. Karn Silex. Hate that. I'm going to play the Fury that my opponent maybe can't kill immediately with this. Lose 2 off of Ancient Tomb. No targets for Fury. Pass. We can get 6 damage off of Fury. I think that's average. 12 would be hot. Eye of Ugin. Sure, that doesn't contribute mana to getting the Fury off of this board. It feels like opponent has crop rotation based on how they have tapped and untapped that land. Elvish Spirit Guide ×2. Alright, you've got it. Let's play this haste creature. Go to Punchies, Punchies, Shatterskull Smashing. Opponent takes 3. I lose 1 short-term mana for 1 long-term mana. That's maybe not fine, actually. I might want to attack, play Pyrogoyf, and then play something else. Yeah, I'm not going to play that. Urza's Tower. Looks like a Dismember. Another Karn Silex. Well, we'll hold off on that one, I guess. I think I need to play the threats to force my opponent to pop this. The Pyroglyph still gets 5 points of damage in. Karn Silex will take care of this on their turn. That's not bad. This is very good payoff for not losing City of Traders earlier, by the way. So I will play the mountain that I fetch up, lose City of Traders, and cast a Blood Moon. Ayavugan now taps for mana. So this technically accelerates my opponent by 1, but if it's for an Eldrazi, it takes a mana away, and this is going to keep them from doing any of their cool land-based synergy. I feel like we were very lucky to win that. Karn Silex is rough. Chalice on 3. Half kidding. This is fine. This is an aggro hand that also has Magus of the Moon. And I honestly might not be playing Magus of the Moon on turn 1, depending on what land my opponent plays. If they play one of the ones that can result in 4 mana happening on turn 2, I probably have to just play Magus on turn 1. Yeah, so I probably have to play Magus on 1 into that, unfortunately. Alright. This means that if my opponent has a Dismember, they get my Magus of the Moon with it instead of one of my redundant legendary creatures, which I'm unhappy about. Hey, they don't have Dismember. Nice. Yep, and it would have been 4 mana on this turn. It's a big deal. I'm not going to play the other one into Karn Silex, I don't think. I think I have already established that my opponent probably doesn't have Dismember. Would have to have been their draw 4 turn. So we'll just send in Thundering Eruption. I've already made my land drop, so I'll pass the turn. Disruptor Flute, you've got it. What is my opponent name here? Broadside? Yes, we came to the same conclusion. Broadside is probably just the highest amount of burst damage that can happen next turn. Yeah, there's another fucking Karn Silex. Punchies. Send them. Fiery Confluence. That's very frustrating. I don't have the mana to cast that. That would be insane. My Ancient Tomb is not an Ancient Tomb right now. Taps for 1. Sadness. I will be passing the turn here. If my opponent has another untapped land, they could have 3 mana this turn in addition to blowing up these creatures. Alright, Karn Silex happens. This will destroy the Disruptor Flute as well. My opponent gets a Glimmer Post that does get its ability. That tiny bit of life could be relevant. I really want to just play Pyroglyph. Pyroglyph for 3 damage puts my opponent to 9, and then the following Pyroglyph is worth 6 damage, plus attack is lethal. But this is so much mana that I think this is just obligatory, unfortunately. Opponent still has a medium amount of mana, right? Like, the One Ring, for example, is still playable here. Yeah, there's Boseiju into the One Ring. So my opponent gets to Fog now. I think I'm just gonna scale up my creature here, rather than play out another Blood Moon. Simian Spirit Guide. Not what I'm looking for. I wanted to hit a land drop there. I can play those cards. I'll just cast. So I deal 0 damage because of the One Ring protection. Ah! We're screwed. Opponent did not draw any cards with the One Ring. I don't know what they have. That feels wrong, though. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. You've got it. Well, that'll do. GG's. That was a disastrous league. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Bad. Just no band-aid on it, just bad. I think this deck does not have a functional sideboard. I do not think your in-out numbers are going to work for most matchups. And I think that is the biggest problem with the deck. Beyond that, I think not having the One Ring in the deck is just the mistake. I felt like I did not have all that many great opening hands here, and a huge portion of that is, I think, not just being able to shove with the One Ring and being able to hemorrhage, from Mox and Spirit Guide, and then just know that you will recoup the losses later from the One Ring. And versus the more controlling decks, we didn't have Wave 2. I was trading resources 2 for 1 or 1 for 1 in the early game, and my opponents had the Flame of Honors and the One Rings and the Planeswalkers, and I didn't have that same degree of card advantage without the One Ring. So, as I said in the deck tech, I think you need to be playing the broken card. and I very much feel the absence of it in this deck. And I think I'll go ahead and call it there. I hope this was enjoyable nevertheless, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!